Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we are going to be tackling this whole idea of letting go. And I think we've all been there where we're like, okay, yeah, I can get rid of some clutter, but it's that deeper level of letting go that we're really going to dig into today.
Yeah.
We're taking a look at a YouTube video from the Minimalists. It's called Can't Let Go, EAP 450. And they really go there. They really dive into those more challenging aspects of letting go.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about the Minimalist is they present these very, personal stories, right? So they're not just saying, here's, the 5 steps to declutter your life. It's like, here are some real-life examples of how letting go can play out. And I think that makes it a lot more relatable and accessible for people.
Absolutely. And, to kind of kick things off, we have this listener, Bruce, who wrote in with a dilemma that I think a lot of people can relate to in some way or another.
Yeah.
Bruce inherited a valuable art collection from his father, but he doesn't actually like the art and feels burdened by it. But here's the catch. His father is very attached to the collection and actively monitors auction sites. So Bruce is hesitant to part with it out of fear of disappointing or upsetting his dad.
That's tough. Yeah, it's interesting because it's not just about the art itself, right? Mm-hmm. It's about the weight of those expectations and the emotional baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, and the family dynamics too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because how do you navigate that conversation with your dad?
Right.
Especially when it's something that he clearly cares so much about.
The Minimalists even pointed out, he's so passionate about this art. It's not just a casual hobby for him.
Right.
It's a part of his identity is tied up in this art collection.
Yeah. And, that's something we see a lot with inherited items. They carry a sense of history, family legacy, and it can make it incredibly difficult to let go of, even when they don't align with our personal tastes.
It's that fear of what will people think?
Yeah. And in this case, it's not even just about what people will think in general. It's this very specific fear of one person's reaction, his father's raiders.
Yeah.
That makes it even more loaded.
I'm curious, from a psychological perspective, what's going on there? What makes it so hard for people to separate their identity from their possessions?
Well, when we think about creators, they often pour so much of themselves into their work.
Right.
That it becomes an extension of them. It's like a piece of their heart and soul is out there in the world.
Yeah.
And then you have the emotional attachment that builds over time, especially with things we've inherited or collected.
Mm-hmm.
These objects become intertwined with memories, relationships,
for sure,
and our sense of self.
Yeah.
So letting go can feel like we're losing a part of ourselves.
Or even disrespecting the person who gave them to us.
Exactly.
So how did the Minimalists approach this situation with Bruce? Because obviously just saying get over it isn't going to be helpful.
Well, they offered some really practical advice focusing on communication and creative solutions. First, they encouraged Bruce to have an open and honest conversation with his father about the art. Maybe there's a way to find common ground to understand each other's perspectives better. They also suggested exploring options for sharing the art without Bruce bearing the sole burden of storage.
Okay, I like that.
Maybe there are museums, galleries, or even other family members who would be interested in displaying or caring for some of the pieces.
Right. It's like finding a compromise where the art can still be appreciated.
Exactly.
But it's not solely on Bruce's shoulders. They even brought up this idea of finding people who are passionate about this type of art and would genuinely appreciate it, which I thought was such a cool approach because it's ensuring the art is valued and Bruce's father's legacy continues.
Yeah, it's about honoring the intention behind the art as well.
Exactly. It's not just about getting rid of it. It's about finding a solution that respects everyone's needs and feelings.
Absolutely.
Bruce's story really got me thinking about how we often hold on to things out of guilt or obligation, even when they don't bring us joy.
It's like we feel like we have to hold on to these things.
Yeah.
Even if they're weighing us down.
And I think it's a good reminder to examine those feelings and ask ourselves, why are we holding on to this?
Yeah, and is it serving us or is it holding us back?
Before we move on, I want to touch on TK's story about the tooth extraction and the jump start.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
It seems a little random at first, but I'm curious to see how it ties into this idea of letting go.
Me too. I think it'll be interesting to see how they connect it back.
All right, so set the scene for us. What happened with TK's tooth and this jumpstart?
So TK just got a tooth extracted, and he's driving home feeling pretty exhausted and sore. You know how it is after a dental procedure?
Yeah, not fun.
And as he's driving, he sees a woman on the side of the road who needs a jumpstart. Now, he could have easily kept driving.
Right. especially after a tooth extraction.
Exactly. He's in pain. He's tired. Who wants to deal with that?
Right.
But here's where the letting go part comes in. He has this internal debate with himself. He's like, I don't want to help. But then he thinks, if it were me who needed help, would she stop?
Oh, wow.
And that's when he makes the decision to let go of his own discomfort and help her out.
I love that. It's like he had to let go of his own expectations.
Yeah.
And choose service over self-preservation, even when it was inconvenient.
Exactly. And, it goes beyond just helping someone out. It's about letting go of that me first mentality and recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Right.
It's about choosing compassion and connection, even when we're not feeling our best.
I'm starting to see how this seemingly random story actually connects back to the bigger theme. It's not just about letting go of physical possessions.
Oh.
It's about letting go of our own ego, our need to be comfortable, and making space for something bigger than ourselves.
Right. And I think that's such a powerful concept that we're going to see come up again and again in this video.
I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to letting go. For everyone listening, I want you to think about a time when you had to choose between what was easy and what was right. How did you navigate that decision? What did you learn from that experience? We'll come back to that question later, but for now, let's move on to the next segment where we'll explore the challenges of letting go of identities and the expectations that others place on us.
Okay, sounds good. It's fascinating how letting go in one area of life can impact other areas. We saw that in TK's story, letting go of his own discomfort to help someone. But in doing so, he also kind of let go of that ego, that need to put himself first.
Totally. It's like that act of service opened up space for something else to come in, like a sense of connection or even a little bit of joy amidst the pain.
Exactly. And speaking of connection and purpose, this leads us perfectly into this next segment of the video, where they address listener call-ins about letting go of identities and expectations.
This is where it gets really personal, right? Because we're not talking about physical clutter anymore. It's about letting go of those parts of ourselves that we've outgrown or that no longer serve us.
Yeah, and that can be so much harder than getting rid of a physical object. These identities, these roles we play, they're so ingrained in who we think we are.
It's like everyone has a script for us.
Totally. And when we deviate from that script, it creates friction.
The Minimalists share some powerful stories from listeners who are going through this. We hear from Nikki, who's struggling with her family not accepting her decision to stop drinking.
Oh, wow.
Then there's Julie, whose friend wants a dress back after giving it away.
It's like our possessions become entangled with other people's expectations of us.
Yeah, and it's not just personal relationships. We also hear from Marcos and Ian, who are facing pressure to stay in their corporate jobs, even though they want to change.
It seems like everyone has an opinion on what they should do with their lives.
Amina's story about cutting her hair and facing criticism from loved ones really hit home for me.
Oh, yeah. What happened there?
She cut her hair, and people were giving her grief for it, saying they preferred the old her. It's crazy how even our appearance can be tied up in others' expectations.
It's like they're saying, you're not allowed to change. You have to stay the same person you've always been.
Even if that's not who you want to be anymore, it's so limiting.
And it makes you wonder, where do these expectations even come from? Why are we so quick to put people in boxes and resist their growth?
Right. It's like we're afraid of the unknown. When someone close to us changes, it disrupts the familiar. And we might worry about how that change will affect us.
I think it's also about control sometimes. Like we want to hold on to this idea of who they are, even if it's not accurate anymore.
And in doing so, we're holding them back from being their true selves.
Exactly. And it's not always malicious. Sometimes it comes from a place of love and concern.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But it can still be incredibly stifling. There was another caller, AJ, who talked about how people comment on his weight even after he lost a significant amount.
Really? Even after he lost weight?
Yeah, it's like they can't let go of the image of the old him, even though he's made a positive change.
That's tough. It shows how deeply ingrained these societal expectations can be.
The Minimalists made a really interesting point about the connection between possessions and identity. They said letting go of material things is often intertwined with letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we are.
That reminds me of an experience I had where I used to define myself by my career.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was a lawyer, and that was such a huge part of my identity.
Yeah.
But after a while, I realized it wasn't fulfilling me anymore.
What happened? What made you realize it was time to let go of that part of yourself?
It was gradual, but there were a few key moments that really shifted my perspective. One was when...
So it sounds like you had to let go of a lot of expectations, like your own, your family's, maybe even society's, to make that change. Yeah. What was that process like for you?
It definitely wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I felt like I was letting people down, including myself. But, there was just this point where I realized that I was holding on to this identity that just didn't feel authentic anymore. It was like wearing a costume that didn't fit.
Yeah, and letting go of that costume, so to speak, allowed you to step into something that felt more true to who you are. It can be really scary to let go of those old identities, even when we know they're not serving us anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like that quote from Joshua Fields Milburn. He said, "You can't be free if you can't let go." Letting go of those expectations, those old versions of ourselves, that's what really sets us free.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to touch on this segment they call Right Here, Right Now, where the Minimalists highlight a new series on their Patreon called Fragments.
Oh, yeah. Those short films are so interesting.
Yeah.
They explore the deeper side of minimalism, like beyond just decluttering your home.
Exactly. They mentioned one called The Other Clutter that really caught my attention. It's all about the non-material things we accumulate: relationship clutter, calendar clutter, even news clutter.
It's like they're saying minimalism isn't just about physical stuff, but also being intentional with all areas of our lives.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that clutter can take many forms, and sometimes the most important things to let go of aren't objects, but mental and emotional baggage.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that brings us back to the theme of this whole deep dive, right? Letting go is a process that involves examining not just our possessions, but also our beliefs, our relationships, and the roles we play in other people's lives.
It's about asking ourselves the tough questions. What's really important to me? What's no longer serving me? What do I need to let go of to create a life that's more in line with my values?
The Minimalists left us with this question: how often are we letting others dictate the narrative of our lives?
That's a powerful question. It makes you really think about the stories we're telling ourselves and the roles we're playing.
It's about taking ownership of our own stories and making choices that are true to ourselves. So for everyone listening, I want to leave you with this. What's one small act of letting go that you can commit to today? Maybe it's decluttering a drawer, having a difficult conversation, or simply saying no to something that doesn't align with your values. Every act of letting go, no matter how small, is a step towards creating a life that is more authentic, meaningful, and joyful. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was great being here.